Hello, dear Primary 4 students. I am Kamsi McAdams, and I am so excited to be with you in today's lesson. We will start Lesson 1 of Concept 3, which is titled Renewable Energy Resources. أهلا بكم تلاميذ الصف الرابع الابتدائي. أنا مس كامسي. هكون معكم في الدرس الأول من مفهوم Renewable Energy Resources. يلا نبدأ. Do you remember in Concept 2 when we learned the importance of conserving fuels and energy? We experienced 2 hours without electricity. Many of you said how this felt difficult and so different, not being able to use devices and tools we depend on in our daily life. However, this experience helped us think more carefully about fuel resources that provide us with electrical energy. Because we rely on electricity, we have a constant need for different types of fossil fuels, such as oil, coal, and natural gas to generate electricity. These are considered to be very important sources of fuel, but they are non-renewable resources. Non-renewable means that the source cannot easily be replenished. This means we could run out of fossil fuels if we overuse these resources, and they take millions of years to form. Because we want to conserve energy resources to promote sustainability, we should limit our use. This will also help reduce pollution, which is caused, in part, by burning fossil fuels. Do you remember any other solutions that we thought about? Yes, we also talked about the use of solar and wind energy, as well as hydroelectric power. We called those types of energy renewable resources because these energy sources are always available and can be easily replenished. This is one of the main solutions we will focus on in Concept 3, which again is titled Renewable Energy Resources. Get your science book and notebook and be ready to start our lesson. Throughout this concept, we will get to know some new vocabulary words, such as heat, light, radiation, solar energy, turbine, water mills, and windmills. You can find these vocabulary terms on page 56 of your science book. Every time we read or hear one of those vocabulary terms, pay attention. I will share a strategy with you that can help us easily remember the scientific terms that we study. Our focus is on renewable energy resources. Our first activity is to think about all of the information we know from before about different types of renewable resources. You might already know where these resources come from and how we use them. We will do that together in activity number 1, Can You Explain? At first, let's go to our textbook. I want you to look carefully at this picture. Does anyone know what this picture is about? Look carefully. Yes, this is a road and there are trees, but I want you to observe very closely. Do you notice the streetlights? Can you see something different about those streetlights? They have a solar panel on the top. Do you remember when we talked about cars that use solar energy to move? It's the same here. The solar panels use solar energy and transform it to electrical power to light up street lamps. Now, let's think about our Can You Explain question. What are the different ways we can use renewable energy to generate electricity? Open your student book on page 57 and write down your thoughts. My students remembered the definition of renewable energy that was in the vocabulary wall in our class. They said that renewable energy comes from a source that can be renewed or easily replenished. This type of energy source is always available, even if we use a lot of it. My students also remembered ideas we talked about on how we can generate electricity from renewable resources, such as the wind, using the flow of water, or from the sunlight. The use of sunlight or solar energy is the example we examined in the image of the streetlights, where solar panels can absorb sunlight and transform it to electrical power. The use of renewable energy resources, like water and wind, reminds me of ancient times when humans always depended on surrounding natural resources that were available to them. I am sure you wonder how people traditionally used these resources. This is the investigative phenomena that we will explore together in Activity 2. Ask questions like a scientist. Let's look at the activity windmills and water mills. Let's go back together to consider ancient times before there were any electrical devices, no engines or modern technology. What types of machines existed in these historical times? Maybe people used carts that were drawn by animals because there was no gasoline-powered vehicles. People must also have used wood for heating or cooking because, as we learned in the previous concept, wood is one of the oldest types of fuels. There were many tools in the ancient times that used natural resources, like the ones in these two pictures. Look at them and closely pay attention. These are images of machines that humans used in the past. What do you think was the function of each machine? One of these looks like a big fan. Can you believe that these big machines were used to crush grain, to turn it into flour to make bread? They were called mills. These mills have two types. One is moved by water and is called a water mill or a water wheel. Another is moved by air or wind and is called a windmill. Let's think about how these machines work. What form of energy was used to power each of these devices? And how does it make them function and move? Observe the shape of the mill closely. The mills have long blades to catch the wind or rushing water, to turn the parts inside the mill to crush the grains into a fine flour. As the wind moves the mill blades externally, the connections inside move the parts of the mill to crush grains. Abdul Rahman, a student in my class, also guessed that the water mill and the windmill move in the same way. But what moves the parts of the mill and what powers the machine? It's kinetic energy. That's why this is called a water mill or water wheel. What Abdul Rahman said is a very good connection. I am sure you all remember our anchor phenomena and what we learned about how water can be used as a source of energy. Keep thinking about all that you have observed and learned, and let us explore more and read the text on pages 58 and 59. While reading, I want you to write down all of your questions and notes about water mills and windmills. After reading, you can see that both types of mills depend mainly on energy to run. Which types of energy? Yes, that is correct. It is the kinetic energy of the wind or the water that causes the motion in the mill. What do you think are the advantages and disadvantages of windmills and water mills? Since the movement of water or wind is renewable and continuous around us, this will ensure that these sources of energy will always be available. Some of you might also think that it's clean energy, as it doesn't produce any smoke or pollution from emissions. Someone else might think that because these sources are from nature, the cost will be low. Well, one of the disadvantages is that we have to wait for the strong winds to be able to move the windmill. In the case of a water mill, depending on a water source might be difficult if there is a drought or a dry season. I am also wondering, do you think humans still use wind or water energy today? Of course. Humans have discovered and made use of the power of water a long time ago. Now, we still, of course, use renewable energy resources like water and wind to generate electricity. For example, humans developed old windmills and made similar modern machines that are called turbines. They use wind energy to generate electricity. Did you notice this question at the end of the text? Current wind and water turbines look both similar and different from the windmills built hundreds of years ago. Why do you think they look different? When my students examined the pictures closely, they noticed some differences, such as mills are sometimes larger than turbines. There are differences in the size and the shape of the blades of the mills and turbines. You should also try to observe closely to make comparisons between the mill and the turbine. Maybe you now have some questions about windmills and water mills. Let's write these down in our science book on page 59. Let me share with you some of the questions that my students have written. Why are there openings in the old windmill's blades? Why do modern wind turbines have fewer blades? Why do modern wind turbines look taller than old windmills? As we collect evidence and learn throughout this concept, we can return to your questions and hopefully provide answers. At this point in our Wonder lesson, we are ready to evaluate what we already know about renewable energy resources. You should consider what you have learned in the past, what you have experienced in your personal life, and what you might remember from other science lessons so far this year. This is what we will do together in Activity 3, Evaluate Like a Scientist. What do you already know about renewable energy resources? Look closely at this table. You can find it on page 60. You are asked to think about the different tools and devices you see around you daily. Write down the name of the device or the tool in the first column. In the second column, record the energy source for this device. And we will record in the last column whether that energy source is renewable or non-renewable. I will give you time to think, and I will put this table on the board and prepare some tools that we can explore together. will show you some tools, and let's think together about the type of energy they use. We have a flashlight. What is the energy source that it uses? Yes, the battery is the energy source for the flashlight. Let's think of the battery. Is it renewable or non-renewable? When the battery is used up, we throw it away to replace it with a new set of batteries to run the flashlight. So this means the battery is a non-renewable energy resource. Let us record this. So the item is a flashlight. The energy source is a battery. And it is non-renewable. We also have a toy car. When I pull the wire, it moves by the potential energy in the spring that I pulled. What do you think is the source of energy? If every time I pull the wire, will it move? So the potential energy in the spring is renewable. Let's record that. The item is the toy car. The energy source is the spring. And this is a renewable energy resource. How about this calculator? What do you think is the energy source for this calculator? My students in my classroom said the battery. But when we looked, we didn't find any batteries. What we found were these photocells. These are similar to a tiny solar panel. This calculator runs on light energy. If there is no light, the calculator won't work. As we know, light energy produced by the sun is renewable energy. Let's record this answer together. The item is the calculator. The energy source is the sun, but we'll write photocells or light energy. And we said the sun is a renewable energy resource. How about this car on the road? What is the main energy source to power the vehicle? Exactly, gasoline. What kind of energy is gasoline? Yes, non-renewable, because it is a fossil fuel that we could run out of at any moment. Let's record this. The item is the car. The energy source is the gasoline. And as we said, gasoline is a fossil fuel and it is non-renewable. The last thing we have is a cell phone. What what does it use as an energy source? I will only write cell phone in the column and let you complete the energy source and the type. Think first about how we charge a cell phone. Where does the electricity that makes it work come from? And is electricity renewable or non-renewable? There are multiple ways to think about this. Because we can get electricity from a non-renewable fuel, like coal or natural gas, we would classify this as a non-renewable resource. We can also get electricity from a renewable resource, like hydroelectric power or wind power. And in this case, it will be a renewable resource. Now our table is complete, and we analyze the type of energy used in all of these devices. Keep that in mind as we learn more throughout this concept. You will have the chance to go back to your table to add or modify any of your ideas. We have come to the end of today's lesson, where we considered what we already know about renewable energy sources. We explored two machines that humans used to turn grain into flour: windmills and water mills. We know that humans may still use similar technologies, but we rely on electricity for most tasks. Water and wind are renewable energy resources that are used to generate electricity today. Other resources, like fossil fuels, are non-renewable. We analyze the benefits and disadvantages of using renewable resources. Water mills and windmills are key vocabulary terms of this concept. So it's time to go to the vocabulary wall to hang these terms. Water mills, windmills. To help remember these terms, make a small card and write the vocabulary term and definition using your own words. And if you like, draw a simple picture of the word. You can then exchange cards with your classmates and compare definitions. Now it's your turn to get ready for our next lesson. Up next, we will investigate and think about different ways we use energy from the sun. Record your initial ideas and notes in your notebook and keep these until we meet in our next lesson. Thank you to all of the scientists who joined us today. I was super excited to be with you. Thank you. See you next time. Shukran لكل العلماء اللي شاركونا النهارده. إلا al leka.